Lily, Lauren, it is delightful to have you both here, and welcome back to New Mexico in Focus.
Thank you, glad to be here.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking a fair bit about cameras today, and as such, I would like to begin by hitting the rewind button. Let's go back to November of 2023. As the two of you have done many times during your couple of years at the Lobo, you wrote a story that stirred up some trouble and started a conversation. This one about body cameras and University of New Mexico cops. Lily, what did you find out?
So in November of 2023, we received a tip from a lawyer who was representing a couple of UNM students in litigation against UNMPD. And he said that he was having a hard time getting body camera footage from UNMPD. So his initial hunch was that perhaps they were not always using cameras. We then filed some public records requests for body cam footage, and then ultimately did one that was like for all of the body cam footage ever. It came back with no responsive records, and we were able to deduce that they did not have or use the devices. At the time, we also spoke to the then executive director of the ACLU of New Mexico, Peter Simonson, and he informed us about a loophole in the state statute that requires most police departments in the state to use body-worn cameras. University police are not explicitly included, nor are they explicitly excluded from the statute, but that is the reasoning that UNMPD was using for not having the cameras.
In other words, their interpretation of that 2019 statute was, we're not subject to this.
Right, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Before we get too far along here, I want to talk about why body cameras matter. So in a past life, I did a ton of reporting on these devices, especially as they started to hit the scene in the early 2010s. As it turns out, they have not been like the panacea of police accountability that many reformers hoped they were, but it does seem to me that we're probably better off with them than without. So Lauren, I'm curious, what did you turn up in the course of your reporting that might demonstrate why body cameras would have mattered on campus?
So body cameras, it's been universally agreed that they're kind of beneficial to both community and to cops for a lot of different reasons. But there have been a few situations at UNM where they would have been important to have had that been available. There was one situation where there was a lawyer representing students who had been accused of breaking into cars outside of a dorm parking lot, and he couldn't really prove either way because there was no body camera footage. And then a lot of protests that have been going on. Starting in 2022, there was the protest against Charlie Kirk. 3 students were arrested then. There was no body camera footage. And then also with the Gaza protests last spring, there was only security camera footage and New Mexico State Police footage, but there was not any UNMPD body camera footage, and that would have helped sway either way. And then also in terms of police departments, we talked to Lieutenant Tim Delgado of UNMPD, and he also agrees that they do benefit police in the sense that it avoids any false accusations that they might deem false. It can kind of prove or disprove either way.
It's sort of an impartial referee or arbiter. The video doesn't lie, right?
Yeah.
So we have this legal loophole, right? And UNMPD, at the time at least, was exploiting it. I'll go back to you actually, Lauren. What happened after that first story dropped?
So it kind of started a conversation among at least UNMPD, UNM officials, and it's still, the first story dropped in about November, and then the second one dropped in March. And after that is when it started to get a little bit more press coverage from other bigger outlets, and then that's kind of when I think UNM started to get more, once they were getting coverage outside of just the UNM community, that's when they started to have that conversation, and then shortly after that is when the protests happened. And so that August is when we first talked to UNM, and they first started to implement those body cameras before there was any new laws introduced.
Or at least say that they were in a conversation around we should probably do this, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wind the tape to now. Lily, it's my understanding from reading The Lobo just this week, as a matter of fact, that UNM cops do in fact have these body cameras now. What do we know about that and when it first started, and what do we know about the devices themselves?
Yeah, so like Lauren said, they announced that they were going to implement them in August. They officially started using them in March. So they're Axon cameras, and they also have the Axon storage, cloud-based storage system. They do not have a policy yet. Delgado told us that they're operating under what he described as like a partial policy right now, which is kind of, it's not official, but it outlines when the officers are supposed to and to not use their cameras. He said basically every interaction with the public, except for in cases when officers are like entering a hospital room or a bathroom or some other like sensitive area. Yeah, that's what we know so far.
But the devil's in the details with these things, right? I mean, I read your story and basically his quote was, everything's going great so far. But if an officer fails to turn on a camera, in one of those instances, excluding like going into a bathroom or a hospital, right now there's no way to hold them accountable for not doing that, right? They haven't violated a policy because there isn't one.
Right, yeah. And Delgado said that the policy that he drafted and is currently like in the HR approval and like general counsel approval process does account for what to do if an officer doesn't turn on their camera when they're supposed to. Not totally clear yet what exactly the language around that is though.
And will the public be able to see that policy when it is stood up?
Yeah. He said he hopes within the next month, and it'll be in the Standard Operating Procedures Manual, which is on UNMPD's website.
Gotcha. Okay, so we'll keep an eye out for that policy. I'm certainly interested to see how that ends up getting spelled out. While y'all were reporting on this legal loophole and the university's consideration of getting body cameras for their cops, the legislature stepped in. So Lauren, what would Senate Bill 505, which by the way is a fantastic bill name, right? What would that bill have done and what was its fate in the 60-day session?
So it introduced two things. It introduced the explicit inclusion of university police departments. It used to have a list of all the police departments that would be subject to body cameras, and it was supposed to include basically all of them. So now it explicitly says university police because that is what Senator Cervantes intended upon when he originally created it. But then the second part of that was there was a change in language from officers who don't turn on their body cameras may be presumed to have acted in bad faith to shall be presumed to have acted in bad faith. And that's kind of where there was more controversy among public commenters. A lot of police officers showed up to public comment opposing to that section of the bill, and ultimately it never made its way through the Senate.
Gotcha. This is an interesting lesson in legislative intent. You all started this conversation by writing this story in the Lobo and ultimately got to the bill sponsor who was like, I totally meant university cops, but it's not in there explicitly spelled out, right?
Yeah.
Lily, let's talk a little bit more about that bad faith clause. That seems to me to have been one of the real sticking points in terms of why this bill ultimately failed in the legislature. What were you hearing from folks during debate, during public comment? What were these police chiefs saying?
Yeah. Every police chief who spoke while we attended the committee meetings where the bill was heard was opposed to the change from may to shall. The general argument was something like it assumes that officers are acting in bad faith when in reality they could have forgotten to turn on their body camera or a situation unfolded too quickly, they didn't have time to press the button, stuff like that. No one seems to be opposed to the university part. It was just really that word change was a huge point of contention and among legislators as well when they were debating it.
So essentially what would have happened is anytime we end up with an instance where some high-profile incident happens and an officer fails to turn on his body camera, the presumption under that law is you broke the law if you didn't turn the camera on, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Lauren, what do we know ultimately beyond sort of that contention and what we heard from public commenters? What else do we know about why the bill failed, if you know? And do we expect that we might see this again in the 2027 60-day legislative session?
So we don't know for sure. We tried contacting Senator Cervantes through email and phone calls, both of us did, and we weren't able to contact him since the session ended. So we're not sure exactly why it didn't pass, but yeah, we're hoping that it'll come back next year.
Gotcha. Lauren Lifke, Lily Alexander, thank you both for all of your work on this issue and for a pretty spectacular couple of years at the Lobo. I'm excited to see what you both do next. Lily, you and I will be back in just a minute to talk about your